my best friend asked me to test his girlfriend's loyalty. What she said changed my life forever. There are moments in life that seem small when they begin but end up dividing your life into two chapters before and after. I never imagined that one phone call from my best friend would become the reason I questioned everything I believed about love, loyalty, and friendship. Looking back now, I realize that the greatest betrayals are not always the ones we commit against others. Sometimes, they are the ones we commit against our own hearts. And sometimes, the truth arrives so unexpectedly that it changes your life forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, and second chances still matter in today's world, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. My name is Nathan, and I had lived in Denver, Colorado, for nearly 10 years. My best friend, Ryan, had been part of my life since college. We had survived failed businesses, heartbreaks, late-night road trips, and countless mistakes together. If anyone had asked me who I trusted more than my own family, the answer would have been Ryan without hesitation. A few months before everything changed, Ryan introduced me to his girlfriend, Claire. She wasn't loud or flashy. She didn't try to impress anyone. She had a quiet confidence that made people feel comfortable around her. She listened more than she spoke, remembered little details about everyone she met, and somehow made ordinary conversations feel meaningful. I could immediately understand why Ryan had fallen in love with her. One rainy Friday evening, Ryan invited me over for dinner. After Claire left to visit her sister for the weekend, Ryan became unusually serious. He admitted that he had been hurt badly in his previous relationship, and confessed that fear had followed him into this new one. No matter how much Claire loved him, he couldn't silence the voice in his head telling him she might eventually leave him for someone else. Then he made a request I never expected. He asked me to test her loyalty. At first, I laughed because I thought he was joking, but he wasn't smiling. He wanted me to message Claire, spend time with her if she agreed, and see whether she would betray him. He said I was the only person he trusted enough to tell him the truth afterward. Every part of me told him it was a terrible idea. Love could never grow through suspicion. Trust wasn't something you proved with tricks. But Ryan kept insisting. He looked exhausted, frightened, and desperate. Against my better judgment, I finally agreed, convincing myself I was helping my closest friend overcome his fears. The following week felt heavier than I expected. Every time I opened my phone, I questioned whether I should go through with it. Eventually, I sent Claire a simple message asking if she'd like to grab coffee because I wanted to ask her advice about something personal. She agreed without hesitation. When we met at a quiet coffee shop overlooking a small park, everything felt normal. Children laughed outside while rain clouds drifted across the afternoon sky. Claire smiled politely and asked how she could help. That was when I forced myself to begin the uncomfortable conversation Ryan had asked me to create. I hinted that I admired her. I suggested that maybe she deserved someone different. I implied that perhaps Ryan wasn't the right man for her. The moment the words left my mouth, I hated myself. Claire looked at me silently for several seconds. She wasn't angry. She wasn't offended. Instead, there was sadness in her eyes. Then she said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. She told me that loyalty isn't choosing someone when life is easy. Loyalty is choosing them even when someone else appears to offer something better. She said, if Ryan truly loved her, he would never need someone else to test her heart because trust cannot survive, where fear is allowed to make every decision. Then she looked directly at me and quietly added that the saddest part wasn't that Ryan doubted her. The saddest part was that someone he called a brother had agreed to become part of that doubt. Instead of protecting their relationship, those words felt like a punch to my soul. She wasn't defending herself. She was defending friendship. I suddenly realized I hadn't simply participated in Ryan's insecurity. I had helped destroy the trust between two people who genuinely cared about each other. Claire stood up to leave but stopped before walking away. She smiled gently and said she hoped Ryan would someday understand that real love cannot be measured through traps or games. Then she thanked me for being honest enough to tell her why I had invited her. I sat alone in that coffee shop for nearly an hour. The coffee had gone cold. The room around me had become quiet. But inside my mind, everything was louder than ever. That evening, Ryan called immediately, asking how the test had gone. For the first time in our friendship, I refused to answer his question. Instead, I drove to his apartment. When he opened the door, he could already tell something had happened. I told him everything. I repeated every single word Claire had spoken. As I watched his face, I saw his confidence disappear. The excitement he expected from catching someone in a lie never came. Instead, shame slowly replaced it. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, Ryan admitted that fear had controlled him ever since his previous relationship ended. He had convinced himself that expecting betrayal would somehow protect him from being hurt again. But all it had done was push away the very person who had remained loyal. The next morning, Ryan asked Claire to meet him at a quiet lakeside park. I stayed far away because I knew this conversation belonged only to them. Hours later, Ryan called me with tears in his voice. He told me Claire had listened patiently while he apologized. She admitted that his actions had hurt her deeply. But she also understood where his fear came from. She agreed to give him one final chance, not because he deserved it, but because she believed people could grow when they truly accepted responsibility for their mistakes. Months passed. Something changed in all of us. Ryan began attending counseling to deal with the emotional wounds he had ignored for years. Instead of hiding behind suspicion, he started learning how to communicate honestly. Claire remained patient, but she also established healthy boundaries. She taught Ryan that forgiveness never means accepting repeated disrespect. As for me, I spent a long time reflecting on my own choices. Friendship doesn't mean saying yes to everything your best friend asks. Sometimes the greatest act of loyalty is having the courage to say no. If I had refused Ryan from the beginning, perhaps none of us would have experienced that painful lesson. Yet strangely, that mistake became the beginning of something better. 2 years later, I stood beside Ryan as his best man during his wedding. When Claire walked down the aisle wearing a simple white dress, I remembered that rainy afternoon in the coffee shop and the sentence that had changed my life forever. Trust isn't something another person earns through endless tests. It is something we choose to give when someone has already shown us their character. After the ceremony, Ryan hugged me tightly and whispered that he almost lost the love of his life because he had been too afraid to believe he deserved her. I smiled and reminded him that sometimes the hardest lessons become the strongest foundations. Today, whenever someone asks me for relationship advice, I never tell them complicated rules or clever strategies. I simply tell them this story. Because love without trust becomes control. Friendship without honesty becomes weakness. And fear, if left unchecked, can destroy even the most beautiful relationships before they ever have a chance to grow. Before we reach the end, I'd love to hear from you. Please comment with the words, "Trust builds love," if you believe honesty and loyalty are stronger than suspicion. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone important in your life, please don't leave without liking this video, sharing it with your friends and family, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a heartfelt comment below. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that inspire hope, healing, and second chances. Because in the end, the words that changed my life forever didn't come from a perfect person. They came from someone who understood that real loyalty isn't proven by passing tests. It is revealed by standing firm when trust is placed in your hands. That lesson stayed with me long after the coffee shop closed, long after the wedding ended, and long after the fear disappeared. It became the compass that guided every friendship and every relationship I built afterward, reminding me every single day that the strongest hearts are never the ones that demand proof, they are the ones brave enough to believe.